and gentlemen, welcome to the Mailbox for the 17th of October 2011. My name is Totalbiscuit, bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming discussion, and all that good stuff. Let's speed up. Let's not. I don't want to get the Mailbox done in 5 minutes. Plus, I'd have to start subtitling it. That would be pretty terrible. So I'm bringing you your daily dose of community interaction, gaming discussion, and all that good stuff. You can email in mailbox at cynicalbrit.com. That is mailbox at cynicalbrit.com with topics for future shows. First email comes in from Patrick. It says this. ATB, you may have heard of the issue in which the apartment of a Project Zomboid developer was broken into and the laptops were stolen, source code included. Due to a lapse in judgment, I'm sure the source code was not backed up off-site, rather on another laptop which was stolen as well. A recent Reddit thread has brought up a lot of controversy in which people frequently called him a con artist as well as other things. Even though it was only $8 and the developer states he intends to continue. I personally pity him and I think the incident was unfortunate, but I don't believe he's a con artist. However, in the immediate aftermath of the event, the devs responded very immaturely via Twitter and other sources responding to their critics. Perhaps this is not entirely unreasonable in the immediate aftermath of what happened. Since then, one of the devs created a blog post on their website which can be summarized as, "Yeah, we're unprofessional, deal with it." What are your thoughts on the whole situation? Well, it does suck. There's no real doubt about that. My condolences for having their laptop stolen. Nobody deserves that. Absolutely nobody whatsoever. However, there's where my sympathy has to end. Do you remember the incident with PayPal earlier on this year? Yeah, I was pretty much in support of them on that one. No real doubt about that. But PayPal had these doubts, and the reason they had these doubts is that they were selling a product that wasn't out yet and might not actually be finished. And of course, PayPal needs to protect themselves in the sense that if the project doesn't get finished and something horrible happens and everyone demands refunds, PayPal's going to have to process all those refunds. It's going to get charged back to them, and the chances are they're going to come off with a loss. So you've got to understand PayPal's position there. Here's the thing, though. This is the kind of incident they were trying to protect themselves against. This kind of thing, this unreliability, the instability of this company is what they were trying to protect themselves against here. And in that regard, I have to turn around and say, Indie Stone, what the hell are you thinking? I mean, really? Anyone that's taught to use a computer is taught what the word backup means and that you should do it. Back up all your stuff. I mean, this is paranoia about not backing everything up, because if you don't, then something horrible could happen to you. Now, when you're your normal everyday computer user, the worst thing that's probably going to happen is you lose some family photos. When you are a developer whose livelihood is dependent on this and you have customers waiting for your product, then that's a little bit of a bigger deal. And don't tell me that the source code for Project Zomboid is so massive that you couldn't put it on an FTP or a freaking Dropbox account, because I installed that alpha and it's not very big. So I assume that the source code is not 50 bazillion goddamn gigabytes, even before they compile it. Back up off-site. This is what you do all the time. This is what you have to do. And this is why. And you certainly don't keep your backup in the same house. What happens if the house catches fire? I mean, really, fire is not that uncommon. What happens if the flat catches fire and all your work is destroyed? You've had nothing off-site. And then, of course, the more likely thing that the laptops get stolen. You backed it up on a laptop. You didn't even back it up on a desktop. Laptop's really easy to steal, for God's sake. You might as well back it up on a goddamn iPad. Though that's definitely not attractive to thieves. The worst thing about this is not actually the drunken Twitter rant. I can understand that. You lose something major, big part of your life, you get drunk to try and ease the pain, and yeah, you go off a little bit on Twitter. I go off on Twitter all the time. That's fine. You apologize after you sober up if it was bad enough, and if it wasn't, then it's just a case of deal with it.gif. Stop being so goddamn oversensitive, guys, following this person on Twitter or whatever. The problem comes in with this blog post, and it's on the subject of professionalism. Now, this is a topic that I like to discuss because I, as sort of a one-man commentator with a small support team, am often accused of being unprofessional in the sense that I will actively go out of my way to criticize somebody, or I'll argue with someone on Twitter or Reddit or on a forum or anything like that. And that, to me, is okay, because I view professionalism in a very specific way, in the fact that professionalism is producing consistently high-quality content and having standards. That, to me, is what being a professional is, and it turns out the TF2 Sniper agrees with me on that one. What being professional is not, and it can be part of it, there's no real doubt about that, very much can be, but it's certainly not required, is the idea of PR. Because this is what this blog post talks about. I've linked this in the description below this video if you want to read the full one. It's by someone called Captain Binky, one of the Indie Stone guys. So what it is not is being all nicey-nicey to people. That's not required. That's totally fine. If you want to be mean to people, you want to kick people out of the community, that's fine. You want to lose a sale because you are mean to some moron that's overly entitled for his $8, that's okay. You can do that. You take the responsibility for that action. If I lose a subscriber because I flame him or I just block him for posting something stupid, I accept the responsibility for that action. I accept that that will, in a very, 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 very tiny way, impact my revenue. But I don't care because I prefer quality over quantity. But when you then come out and say that, oh, well, there's a third type of indies that don't pretend to be professional in any way, shape, or form, and then go on to say, oh, well, just because we sold you something doesn't mean that we have to be professional, then there's the problem. This is the line I don't like. Oh, no, wait, but we're selling you a game, therefore we must be professional. Who says? Why? If we wanted to be professionals, we'd have never left our jobs in the first place. Well, here's the thing, though. Your livelihood is now reliant on you not pissing off your customer base to the point where they all leave you. And this is not just simply down to insulting some guy that left a bad comment on your forum or your website. Cool, we get it. If you want to lash out at those people, you go for it. I fully support that. I do it all the time. That's totally fine. But it's about having standards. Professionalism is not about being nice to people. It's about having standards like back up your damn software. Good God. Basic standards, because you want to know why you have to have standards? Because the people that are consuming your product matter. You have to treat them in such a way. You must give them what they have paid for. In my case, I believe that I have to consistently create high-quality content of a certain standard. You want to know how many videos I delete? A lot. Because they're not good enough for consumption. I did a WTF Is yesterday of Costume Quest. It was awful. I deleted it. It was a 30-minute video. I deleted the whole damn thing. You want to know why? Because it was bad. And I accepted that it was bad. And it was a bad video. And my commentary was awful. And it wasn't funny in any way. I did not demonstrate the game in a proper manner. So, you know what? I deleted the damn thing. That's called professionalism. That is standards. And you have to keep those standards up, otherwise you will lose your customer base. In the case of my guys, they're watching an ad, and I'm getting revenue from that. Yeah? They're not directly paying me. They get everything for free, aside from the guys, of course, who subscribe to my stream, and thank you very much for that. They're getting everything for free, but I still have to maintain a certain set of standards. When you have someone paying you directly into your pocket, like they are taking money out of their wallet and giving it to you, as opposed to watching video, and then money is generated by a third-party advertising firm. They are giving you money from their wallet to do something, and you have a certain responsibility to those people. And it's not just about your personal livelihood and, of course, the enjoyment and the livelihood of your customer base. It's about the entire indie scene and the fact that this alpha pre-order thing is becoming increasingly popular. It's a good way to fund indie studios, and if indie studios screw it up and screw over their customers, then it's going to hurt everybody. Because people are going to be less willing to pay out, even if it's a small amount of money. And yes, freaking out over $10, and for me, that is not a big deal. I couldn't care less. I could not give a damn about $10. But for some other people, that's actually kind of a lot of money. We're talking about kids, we're talking about students, perhaps even the unemployed that just want to maybe give their money to an indie dev just to help support them because they believe in what they're doing, they believe the final product will be worth it, and they believe that the devs deserve support rather than just giving that money to a major publisher that doesn't give a damn about their $10 in a sale or whatever. They're doing that. They deserve to be appreciated, and the indie scene does not need those people running off and not investing in these projects anymore just because one indie company was irresponsible and it didn't do the thing that we've all been taught since we ever started using computers, and that's to back up your shiz. Good Lord, guys. Good Lord. What are you doing? And that's why I don't have an awful lot of sympathy with Indie Stone. This blog definitely didn't help. If they came on their hands and knees and said, we are so sorry, we apologize for all of this, this was a major screw-up on our behalf, this is inexcusable, we are so sorry for this, then I would have had sympathy. But then defending it with a blog post like that, that is what leaves a sour, bitter taste in my mouth, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not impressed. No way. I'm kind of glad that I didn't do WTF Is on this game, because otherwise that would have been more money that potentially could have gone down the toilet, and that money would have been from my subscribers. No, not keen on that at all. So when it comes to Project Zomboid, I think I'm going to be waiting to see if anything actually comes out of it before I do any coverage of it whatsoever, aside from what I've just said. This one comes in from Camzor. who says this, as already know the game. What? I don't know what that means, but I will assume it's some kind of foreign language. Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is coming out early November this year. The game looks fantastic, and my impressions are that it won't let the series down without a doubt. What I am a little bit skeptical about is that I'm getting the impression that they've dumbed it down a bit. An example of this is the talent system. Apparently you don't choose your major skills like its predecessor Oblivion, you just get better at what you use. It is also known that they have merged some spell groups together. Those are a few aspects of what they changed, but I'm sure that they have done it to other aspects of the game. I doubt it would damage the Elder Scrolls fanbase, but I'm slightly worried it will attract a less desirable audience that prefer games that require minimal brain power. Are you getting this impression? What are your thoughts on this? Were these changes for the better or for the worse? Well, I have a response here. It's actually from my researcher, Alvis, who's been playing these games since day one. I mean, he played a ton of Elder Scrolls Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind. Good lord, the guy knows everything when it comes to that series. But what I would say is, why are you worried about it just attracting a less desirable audience? This is a very elitist attitude as far as I'm concerned. It's a single-player game. Who cares? It doesn't matter if dumb people play this game. The problems only start to arise when those dumb people actually gain some kind of purchase over the game. They gain some kind of influence over the developers, as we've seen in, say, World of Warcraft. This tends to happen in subscription-based games, where Blizzard are, say, terrified of losing their subscriber base. This doesn't really happen in Elder Scrolls, and they don't give a damn. The next Elder Scrolls game will probably sell a ton of copies. The Scrolls game after that will sell a ton of copies. Oh, sorry, I've just entered some kind of trademark infringement by saying the word Scrolls. Holy crap, getting sued by Bethesda, BRB. Whatever the case, we do have a response here from my researcher, and I think this sums it up quite nicely. He says this, having been a fan of Elder Scrolls games since Arena, I can say that I like the changes that I've seen so far, and Bethesda have a history of making tweaks, simplifications, and changes to the game mechanics since the start, constantly iterating on what came before to try and perfect the experience. For example, Daggerfall, which was of course the second game in the series, had all the weapon skills and had a separate skill for determining critical hit chance and damage, and alongside, Sneak had a separate backstab skill. There were no mass protests and complaints about dumbing down when these were removed and incorporated into other mechanics in Morrowind. The Elder Scrolls game mechanics have always been overcomplicated for what they needed to be. A tightly controlled RPG, such as most JRPGs, can benefit from an easy-to-learn, complex-to-master system. An open-world exploration-based game with all the dynamic situations that can entail, you need simpler and less obtrusive mechanics. In this case, good mechanics should aid immersion in the setting, whereas previous Elder Scrolls games, the game mechanics have hurt the immersion. The whole major, minor, and other skills system that the games used I personally never liked, because if you wanted the most out of your character, you took the skills you didn't want to improve as your major and minor skills that affected your leveling, so that you didn't level up your character accidentally, because attribute game was always based on total skill level ups, not just your major and minor, and to constantly get the +5 bonuses which were needed in the harder areas of the earlier games and which became more generally needed with the level scale world of Oblivion, you had to very carefully manage your character and do a lot of farting about with skills you had no interest in. The continued inclusion of athletics and acrobatics into Oblivion being the classic example. You need to run constantly and constantly jump around like you're an Italian plumber in order to level those skills, which you were required to do in order to perform said careful management of your character, and that was absurd. This new method of just using what you want and having you get better at it is a good thing for a series that is supposed to be about doing just that. Bethesda have learned a lot from their involvement with the Fallout franchise, and in my opinion, it's making Skyrim a better game. And I have to agree with that, honestly. I remember playing Oblivion. I played about 300 hours of the damn thing. I even played it on a console, if you can believe that. At that point, I was a very poor student indeed. I could not afford a good PC, so I had a 360. I was lucky. I got a bonus at one point, and I was able to buy a console. The way leveling up worked in that game was kind of dumb, and the way that skills worked was not exactly optimal. I tend to agree. Honestly, I don't think you need all that ridiculous fiddling at the start. I don't know what I want to be when I start a game like this. This is something you've got to understand. I don't know. You're asking me to pick major and minor skills before I've even played the game? I don't know what my preference is going to be. I mean, for instance, I was a caster back in Oblivion, but with the changes they've made to the combat system, I might want to be a melee fighter, or I might want to be a thiefy-style character with the changes to stealth and things like that. I don't know until I play it. So why do I have to choose these things now and then have to restart my character if it turns out that's not what I want to do? It makes far more sense to do it the way that they've done. And honestly, when it comes to putting skills in together and cutting and trimming the fat, as it were, I'm in support of that. The good thing about doing that is that every skill up you get makes you feel much, much more powerful if you condensed the skills in such a way that every time you gain something, you gain a ton of ability in the process. That's good. That feels good. Whereas leveling up in the previous games, not so much. And it was fiddly. I mean, come on, really? You know, you had to choose when you leveled up because of the nature of the game and the way that it's scaled. It was, in many places, goddamn counterintuitive. And you don't add elements like that to a game just to make it hardcore. You know, I never agree with that. Oh, you know what? I want a good game. If a game's got depth, it should gain that depth in a sensible manner. It should not gain complexity because of needlessly ridiculous mechanics and bad design decisions. I'm gonna get people very riled up here. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it because I love it. It's a fun thing to do. For instance, creep denying in Dota. You know, a terrible mechanic. That gives the game depth and skill. It's dumb as hell. I don't care if it adds an element of competitive skill to the game. I don't care if it became part of the game that it works. It's stupid. Killing your own minions is ridiculous. I'm sorry, it is. That's the very idea of counterintuitive right there. And Oblivion and the games before it were riddled with things like that. So this is the kind of thing that Bethesda is trying to iron out for a very good reason. It doesn't dumb the game down. It makes it more of a game and less of trying to beg the system to work the way that you want it to via some kind of arcane means and perhaps a little bit of black magic. Okay, folks, that's me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the Mailbox, and I will see you next time.